Have you ever been told that Satan was cast out of heaven a long, long time ago? Most people think he was kicked out the moment he disobeyed God, that he was never allowed back, that heaven is a perfect place with no room for darkness. And while that last part is true in the end, the Bible tells a story that most people never see coming, because right now, Satan still has access to heaven. Yes, you heard that right, the enemy of God. The one who tempted Adam and Eve in the garden, the one Jesus called a liar and a murderer, still walks into the heavenly courts, not to worship, not to praise, but to accuse, to point fingers, to tell God, look at what your people have done. And if you've ever felt heavy with shame, if you've ever wondered, why am I being attacked like this? If you've ever felt unworthy, unclean, like someone is whispering lies in your ear to tear you down, then you already know how real this is. But here's the most amazing part. The Bible doesn't just tell us what Satan does, it tells us what God does in response. In the book of Revelation, there's a moment coming when Satan is thrown down for good. He loses his place in heaven forever, and he knows his time is short. But until then, we live in the in-between, a time of accusation and a time of defense. You are in a spiritual courtroom, but you're not alone. Jesus stands for you. He speaks on your behalf, and the enemy's voice, no matter how loud, can't overpower the truth of the cross. So why is Satan still allowed near heaven? What is God showing the world through it? And what can you do when the accusations feel louder than God's love? Let's go deeper into the Word and uncover what Revelation really reveals, because this truth might just change how you see everything. When we hear the word heaven, most of us imagine a perfect place in the sky. We picture golden streets, glowing angels, and God sitting on a bright throne with light all around him. And yes, that part of heaven is real. It's the place where everything is good and peaceful, where there's no crying, no pain, and no sin. That's the final heaven, the place we're all waiting for when Jesus returns and makes everything new. But what if I told you that heaven is actually more than one thing in the Bible? The Bible talks about different levels or realms of heaven. In Genesis it says, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." Notice that word, heavens. Not just one, it's plural. That means more than one kind. There's the sky we can see, that's the first heaven. Then there's space, with all the stars and galaxies, that's the second heaven. But there's also a third heaven, a spiritual place where God's throne is. The Apostle Paul actually mentions this in 2 Corinthians. He says he was caught up to the third heaven, a place beyond anything we can imagine. That's the place we often think of when we say heaven. But here's the twist. Even in this spiritual realm, there seems to be a courtroom, a heavenly meeting room where God holds counsel. And this room is not always empty. In the book of Job, we see something surprising. The sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. Wait, what? Satan? In heaven? Not in the place of peace and joy, but in this heavenly council, a place where God listens, where accusations are made, where decisions are passed down. It's like a courtroom in the sky. God sits as the judge. Satan tries to play the prosecutor, and one day Jesus steps in as your defender. This shows us something really important. Heaven isn't just a place of worship, it's also a place of justice. Until the final judgment, God allows Satan into this courtroom, not to live in heaven, but to present his case, to accuse God's people, to try and prove we're not worthy of God's love. But don't worry, this courtroom isn't Satan's turf. He's just allowed in temporarily, and God already knows how the case will end. There's a story in the Bible that most people know, but they don't always see the hidden part. It's the story of a man named Job. Job was a good man. He loved God. He did what was right. He was kind, generous, and faithful. And because of that, God blessed him. He had a big family, a successful life, and a heart full of faith. But then something strange happens. The Bible says that one day the sons of God, which means heavenly beings like angels, came to present themselves before the Lord. And guess who showed up with them? Satan. Yes, Satan was allowed into God's presence. This wasn't a friendly visit. Satan didn't come to worship or say hello. He came with a mission. He came to accuse. God asked Satan, "Where have you come from?" And Satan said, "From roaming the earth, going back and forth." It sounds casual, but it's not. Satan was looking for weakness, watching people, waiting for someone to fall. And that's when God said something amazing. Have you considered my servant Job? There's no one like him on the earth. You'd think Satan would be impressed. But no, Satan shot back. Job only loves you because you protect him. Take everything away from him and he'll curse you to your face. Just like that, a spiritual test began. But let's pause for a second. This whole scene takes place in heaven, not in hell, not in the wilderness. Heaven. And that's the shocking part. Satan had access to the heavenly council. He was able to stand there and speak, not because he belonged there, but because God allowed it for a time. Why? Because God was going to use even Satan's lies to show Job's faith and to reveal his greater plan. This moment in Job shows us something deep. Even when the enemy accuses, God is in control. He doesn't panic. He doesn't fear the devil. He uses everything, even evil, to show his goodness and glory. And by the end of Job's story, guess what? Satan disappears from the scene, and God blesses Job with even more than he had before. So yes, Satan was in heaven's courtroom, but he wasn't in charge, and he never will be. Now that we know Satan was allowed into heaven's courtroom, we need to ask the next big question. How long does this last? When does it stop? For that, we turn to one of the most powerful and mysterious chapters in the Bible. Revelation 12. This chapter is like a heavenly movie scene. There's a woman clothed with the sun, a red dragon with 7 heads, and a battle in the sky. But it's not just a story with strange symbols. It's a picture of something real, something coming. In Revelation 12:7 it says, "Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back." That dragon? It's not just a monster. The Bible tells us clearly, it's Satan, the same accuser from the book of Job, still fighting, still trying to win. But this time, everything changes. Revelation says, "But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven." Let that sink in. They lost their place. That means Satan had a place in heaven until this moment. It doesn't mean he lived there. It means he had access, a legal right to accuse, like in a courtroom. But during this war, that access is taken away forever. The next verse says, "The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He's thrown down to the earth." And when that happens, a loud voice in heaven shouts, "Now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God. For the accuser of our brothers and sisters has been hurled down." This is huge. It means the day is coming when Satan will no longer be allowed to accuse you or anyone else ever again. He'll never step foot near God's throne again. He'll never speak another word in heaven's courts. But until that moment comes, he still roams, still accuses, still tries to make you feel like you don't belong to God. That's why Revelation shows this war. It's not just in the future. It's already started in the spiritual realm. But here's the good news. Satan loses, completely, forever. So if you feel like you're in a battle right now, you're not crazy. You're in the middle of something real, but you're also on the winning side if you stay close to Jesus. Now, this might be the biggest question of all. If God is so powerful, if heaven is so holy, why would he let someone like Satan come anywhere near it? Why let the enemy speak? Why give him a voice in the heavenly courts? It doesn't make sense, at least not at first. But when we slow down, when we really look at the story, we see something amazing. You see, God isn't afraid of Satan, not even a little bit. God doesn't flinch when Satan walks in. He doesn't panic or hide, because he knows something Satan refuses to accept. The truth always wins. And so God does something strange, but brilliant. He allows Satan to speak, not because Satan is right, but so the whole universe can see how wrong he is. It's like a courtroom. Satan tries to be the prosecutor. He brings up every sin, every weakness, every failure we've had. He says, "See, look at them. They don't deserve you." And then God lets him finish and turns to Jesus, because Jesus is our defender. When Satan points to your sin, Jesus points to the cross. When Satan lists your failures, Jesus shows his scars. When Satan says you should be condemned, Jesus says, I paid for that every single time. So why does God allow Satan in? Because God is showing the universe what justice really looks like. Not just punishment, but mercy. Not just truth, but grace. Not just rules, but love. God lets Satan speak for a time, so that in the end no one can question God's goodness. Not the angels, not the demons, not you, not me. Everyone will see God didn't cheat. God didn't hide. God didn't silence the enemy. He defeated him out in the open for all to see. And one day, when Satan is finally cast out of heaven, no one will ask why. We'll all know exactly why. Because God gave him time to accuse, but Jesus gave his life to save. And that's what makes all the difference. Up until now, Satan has had a role in heaven's courtroom. He accuses, he points fingers, he brings up our sins. But then, Jesus enters the story, and everything changes. Before Jesus came to earth, Satan had a strong case. People sinned, people messed up, people turned away from God again and again, and Satan used all of it as evidence. He said, they don't deserve heaven, they don't love you, look at their hearts. And sadly, much of it was true. But then God did something Satan didn't expect. God didn't just sit on his throne and wait. He stepped down. He became one of us. Jesus, God in the flesh, came to earth, walked in our shoes, and lived a perfect life. He never sinned, never lied, never turned away from his Father. And then, he did something incredible. He took our place. On the cross, Jesus carried every accusation Satan ever made. Every lie we believed, every sin we committed, every time we felt unworthy or ashamed. Jesus carried it all on his shoulders and said, "It is finished." And at that moment, the courtroom changed forever. Because now, when Satan accuses, he's missing a piece. The cross. It's like trying to prove someone guilty when the fine has already been paid. The judge slams the gavel and says, "Case closed." That's what Jesus did for you. And that's why Satan can still accuse, but his words have no power. He might speak, but Jesus speaks louder. He speaks with love, with mercy, with wounds in his hands and feet that say, "You are forgiven." This is why Revelation says the enemy's time is short. Because ever since Jesus rose from the dead, Satan's grip has been breaking. The war in heaven is already turning. The victory is already won. The clock is ticking for the accuser, and you're no longer on trial. Because if you belong to Jesus, you're free. Not because you're perfect, but because he is.